Both a cardinal sin and an occupational hazard. Being otherwise impaired with your own and someone else's body on the line can have fatal consequences in the moment and in the years that follow. And the anecdotes are often shared in great detail. War stories brought up by the soldiers that survived and reframed as scars of war. So with all that in mind, I am Gareth, you are watching What Culture Wrestling, and here are 12 wrestlers who competed under the influence. Number 12, Jake Roberts. An infamous performance from an infamous industry addict. Jake Roberts' Heroes of Wrestling turn was a darkly amusing but devastating glimpse into the life the Snake was confined to before he finally defeated his demons. Ostracized from all major organizations for his spiraling drink and drug addictions by 1999, Roberts was still a huge name for the bizarre Super Show in Las Vegas, but was in no fit state to even cut a promo, let alone get walked through the planned singles match that had to follow his less than wise words. Not long before Beyond the Mat laid bare the extent of the damage he was doing to himself, the WWE icon exposed himself in more ways than one. He was fortunate at least that show was poorly bought and attended, almost serving as a broken tribute act to himself. Jake catastrophically blew his gambling analogy before taking to the ring and pretending to masturbate with his snake, before his bout was turned into a tag match just to ensure everybody got through it unharmed. Yeah, it was a tough watch. Number 11, John Bradshaw Layfield. Former WWE champion and figure of loathing amongst the ECW faithful, John Bradshaw Layfield was an absolute riot on the one-night stand commentary track he provided as a DVD extra thanks to just how tanked up he got during the event. But his actions were worse than his words when required to engage in a physical finale, infamously smashing the Blue Meanie's face to bits with a series of seriously stiff shots as the show closing melee unfolded. Bradshaw's unprofessionalism was undone by a brief television program between the pair that appeared to figuratively heal the wounds inflicted upon Meanie's unsuspecting face. Accused of targeting his assault on Meanie, Bradshaw was perhaps just too far gone to realize just how hard he'd gone in. The alcoholically impaired commentary track is a rare and real treat, adding a totally different spin on an iconic show, but it should have never concluded with him leaving his post. If the plan all along was to imbibe, he should have resisted the urge to let his fists fly altogether and handed off his anger to one of his many lieutenants. So speaking of brilliant commentary moments, I want to know right now, what is your favorite commentary moment of all time? Let me know in the comments section down below. Number 10, Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle's September 18th, 2003 Iron Man match against Brock Lesnar is remembered as a masterclass of endurance and storytelling. But behind the scenes, it was a performance delivered under unimaginable personal and physical torment. The night before this classic clash, Angle was informed of the devastating news that his sister had passed away due to a heroin overdose. Dealing with his grief, Kurt explained how he turned to Vicodin, a drug he was already dependent on due to the relentless punishment his body endured during his wrestling and amateur careers. Per his own recollection, Angle overdosed on the pills that night by taking 20 in his hotel room, on top of what he estimates was a 65-a-day habit thanks to a dangerous culmination of his addictions at the time. Somehow, the Olympic gold medalist woke up after passing out and pushed forward. The next day, Kurt stepped into the ring with Brock Lesnar for the grueling 60-minute SmackDown contest, delivering a performance so incredible that it masked the agony he was enduring. In hindsight, the match, like many he'd have from the time period, symbolizes Angle's unyielding commitment to his craft, but also serves as a sobering reminder of the unchecked pain, addiction, and bouts of recklessness he was experiencing at the time. Number 9, Scott Hall. Art imitated life when WCW booked Scott Hall to act out some of his darker nights under the bright spotlights of Nitro and Thunder, in a desperate grab to reclaim notoriety during the Monday Night Wars. By 1998, the bad guy was having a bad time keeping his addictions under control, and in a creative call that Eric Bischoff himself has since regretted, the company introduced his struggle on television, with the former Razor Ramon completely unable to control his drinking in the face of his weekly pro wrestling responsibilities, perhaps conceived as punishment booking to somehow intervene on screen before Hall's off-screen antics went a fatal step too far. The direction instead just trivialized his troubling times. Hall staggered out to matches late, looking unkept, took cheeky swigs in between moves, and even vomited over himself and others as he endured entire nights out on Fast Forward to try and pop a quarter-hour rating. It was not a fun watch. It'd be 15 years later before he'd get to his Diamond Dallas Page-led turnaround in 2013. WCW was foreshadowing the sadder times still to come. Number 8. William Regal. Applying scathing assessment to his darkest days in his autobiography, Walking a Golden Mile, William Regal spoke with candor and regret about a maiden WWE run in 1998, savaged by his drink and drug addictions. Losing the battle against dependencies that had developed over several years while rehabilitating from a painful leg and ankle break earlier in the summer, Regal was almost always able to mask the worst of his struggles bell to bell, until his limp real man's man gimmick called for promos to augment his television bouts. A particular Monday Night Raw bout with Goldust in November 1998 presented a rather damning case against the former Lord. A stumble on the way to the ring was easily missed thanks to the distracting overture of his absurd entrance theme. Seriously, what was going on here? But there was no hiding place when he took the microphone. Slurring through the entire speech, Regal sounded ready to call it a night before the bell, but his heaviest session was still to come. The pair went 6 stuttering minutes before Kane emerged to bring the bout to a climax as unsatisfying as the match itself. In hindsight, everybody was lucky to escape it without injury, to be honest. Number 7. Jeff Hardy. It took numerous bad decisions for the world to bear witness to Jeff Hardy's plight live on a wrestling pay-per-view. Some of them not even the work of the charismatic enigma himself. Now, of course, Hardy should not have gotten himself in no condition to perform, but that exact phrase was invented because of its literal connotations. He was categorically not fit to engage in a dangerously physical endeavor. Yet, TNA management made yet another bad decision by allowing it to proceed. Eric Bischoff was the face of said team, emerging before Hardy's Victory Road 2011 bout with Sting commenced to inform both of the revised finish in order to get Jeff out of there even quicker than they'd recklessly gotten him in. The icon looked understandably livid with his lot throughout, but Jeff was too far gone to realize that he'd hit rock bottom. Long before Brother Matt's broken universe reimagined the past, present, and future of the team, both brothers desperately needed help to fix themselves. Before we talk about the other half of the Hardy Boys though, if you're finding this list quite interesting, then tap on that subscribe button down below for more What Culture Wrestling videos in your day. Now back to this video. Number 6. Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy's own addictions thankfully never resulted in a match or moment as regretful as his brother's Impact Zone embarrassment. But a WWE 24 special revealed the full extent of his own problems with drugs and alcohol at the tail end of the 2000s. In raw, previously unused interview footage never revealed, Hardy was shown falling asleep midway through a talking head, whilst friend and colleague Christian spoke with sadness at the prospect of losing him altogether. The 6 survivors of the TLC-era tag matches were all still clinging on in the industry, despite the damage done to their bodies in their younger days. But Hardy's injuries appear to have expedited his personal and professional descent. Sharing stories of seeing him passed out in his food, the pattern was all too familiar for the veteran not to worry about the very worst, particularly when Hardy left WWE under a cloud relating to his inability to conquer his demons in 2011. Thankfully, both Hardys seem to be in a better place today in TNA, and have hopefully put their worst days behind them. Number 5. Shawn Michaels. It all kicked off between Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels in 1997 after months and years of verbal sparring escalated into a fight that very nearly chased HBK out of the organization altogether. It was, unsurprisingly for the era, his chemically loosened lips that triggered the kickoff, fueling a King of the Ring clash between the pair that ultimately failed to materialize. The two were once again arguing in front of the public when Michaels delivered his infamous near-the-knuckle flurry that completely destroyed any shreds of trust remaining between the duo. Commenting that Bret had seen some sunny days lately, Shawn inferred an extramarital affair between Bret and Tammy Sunny Sitch, which naturally caused problems in Hart's private life, and didn't belong anywhere near a live microphone. But on that night, neither did Shawn Michaels really. For not the first nor last time that year, Shawn had allegedly turned up to work work so out of it on a cocktail of drugs and alcohol that he couldn't really be relied upon to go out in front of the live crowd. The promo was instead designed to prevent any embarrassing hazards, but the Titantron turned out to be all HBK needed to create one anyway. Number 4. The Sandman. The Sandman has been out of it countless times in a career bolstered by a hard-drinking, hard-living gimmick that didn't remotely stray from the path that he walked outside of the industry. But selective sessions have lingered longer in the memory than others. A June 2000 ECW house show represented the nadir for reality bleeding over into the extreme fantasy world, and only the full transcript of the transgressions does his deranged night any justice. PW Torch covered it at the time, and the details are no less grisly to hear almost 2 decades later. As collected from a live report, they noted that Sandman exposed himself to the crowd during the show's main event. He took the house mic, held up his cane, and said, "This is my big cane, and this is my little cane," pointing to his penis. After mooning the crowd a couple of times, Sandman dropped his pants, exposing his penis to the crowd. While many of the fans cheered Sandman, the wrestlers working with him and nearly everyone backstage was said to be upset. Paul Heyman and Sandman ended up talking later in the bathroom. Jack Victory walked into the room, expressed his anger with Sandman's cane shots, and exchanged words with him. Heyman stood between the two men, trying to keep the peace. Victory reached over Heyman and hit Sandman with a forearm. Sandman retaliated by reaching over Heyman and driving his fingers into Victory's eyes. Victory grabbed Sandman by the ears and gave him 4 quick headbutts. On a lighter note, but without trivializing that darkness I've just talked about, there is a charming quality to just how blotto he is at the end of ECW One Night Stand 2005, getting in Stone Cold Steve Austin's face with such furore that the Rattlesnake is forced to push him back just to get on with finishing his show-closing promo. That night in 2000 at the house show, though, was pretty grim from the sounds of it. Number 3. John Cena. A cute one this, as John Cena almost certainly was not as half-cut as he appeared to be whilst enjoying WrestleMania 34 from the crowd, but his acting performance before a bizarre mini-match with The Undertaker was convincing enough to imply that their brief botch may have been partly linked to whatever had been guzzled before the bell. The pair had a short stinker of a match after endless stalling between the champ and Elias that portrayed the multi-time WWE champion as a total goof. Truthfully, he genuinely looked happy to be sat in the seats for a change. Engaging in a big banter segment on the grandest stage yet again, Cena seemed remarkably at peace with his role as he supped pints and chatted with fans fortunate enough to find themselves sat next to one of the biggest stars in the history of the industry. Can you imagine being the person there that night? Just don't expect to see much of that brand of Cena comedy during his epic final run, folks. He's probably not going to be sipping beers on the front row. You never know, though. Number 2. Maven. Maven's career-defining Royal Rumble moment in 2002 wasn't just a case of right time, right place. It was also a result of the kind of locker room etiquette and/or camaraderie that WWE was well known for at the time. The tough-as-nails, tough-enough winner was about to generate the biggest pop of his fledgling career by eliminating The Undertaker, who decided to prepare the rookie for their now legendary elimination spot in a way that'd make peak 90s BSK members proud. Jack Daniels. Hours before the show, Undertaker handed Maven a bottle of the whiskey, telling him to drink and loosen up. Maven, knowing better than to question the dead man in his domain, did as he was told, as would you. As the story goes, the warm buzz helped melt his nerves, building a unique bond between the hard-faced veteran and the fresh-faced underdog. How sweet. What followed was genuinely magic. Maven drop-kicked a heel Undertaker out of the Rumble in comfortably one of the most shocking eliminations in the gimmick's history, sparking a brutal revenge beatdown that remains itself an iconic, if slightly scary, highlight of the show. And number 1, Andre the Giant. The famous drinker predictably was, on occasion, a famous drunk, and eventually one of Andre the Giant's favorite hobbies caught up with him between the ropes. A legendarily bad match from 1986 between the Giant and Akira Maeda fell to bits thanks in part to Andre's altered state. Narked about his condition or simply trying to make the best of a potentially disastrous situation, depending on which account you believe, Maeda seemingly tried to embarrass his drunk foe after totally losing his patience with the stumbling state of things. Kicking angrily at Andre, the match bordered on becoming a real fight as hard boots cut the 7-footer down to size. The late Giant was 3 sheets to the wind, of that we know, but the rest of the content contest remains a curious wrestling oddity. Shrouded in wrestling apocrypha, some believe New Japan Pro Wrestling founder Antonio Inoki wanted the mess the fans received in order to teach Maeda a lesson in humility, using a wasted and uncooperative Andre as a human weapon against the cocky upstart. As far as punishments go, yeah, it was certainly a cruel and unusual way to dish one out. If you want to carry on your YouTube journey with What Culture Wrestling, then do that by tapping on this 10 most bizarre hardcore matches in wrestling history video next. You're in for a ride, folks.